toxic world of hustle culture.
Imagine a lifestyle where your career took the main seat. Now, imagine that this focus came at the cost of every other aspect of being a human. Your friends, your family...
Oh, I don't have to imagine that. That's called being a streamer.
Your hobbies, even your health. You don't have to imagine, because it's real. And it's called hustle culture.
Oh,
it's a mindset
okay.
that encourages hard work, allegedly in the pursuit of glory. If you're sleeping, it's because it gives you a slight edge. If you're eating, it's to fuel yourself to work more.
Right.
And if, God forbid, you're partying, it comes with guilt. Because while you're partying, your competitors are smoking you.
True.
On one hand, hustle culture is a better vice than, say, drinking 3 bottles of vodka a day.
Smoking crack,
and it can help you get out of a rut. But let's be honest. It's not hard to see how this mindset is flawed.
Oh my God, bro. Like, am I the only person? Like, I am so sick of seeing Thomas Shelby, the guy from Peaky Blinders, with some fucking quote that he didn't say as an Instagram motivational post. I'm so fucking sick of seeing these. Yeah, he didn't even say them. It was not even like this is some fucking quote from some some influencer guy that sells courses on how to hustle.
And
on
yeah,
how to get
not
on the
too long
grind
ago,
set.
It looked so attractive to me. In fact, I even tried it for 3 whole years.
That's a
In
long
this
time.
video, I'm going to talk about 6 big lessons that I've learned since I've given up hustle culture and the movement that I think is taking its place. But first, here's my story. The first time I heard about hustle culture, it felt right. It appealed to something deep within me that desperately wanted to change my life. It was 2015 and I was a textbook unhappy guy. I'd gone from druggy dropkick to corporate advertising guy who drinks a bottle of wine every night. I don't know which one's better, to be honest. But one day in that advertising job, I started working with this lady from New York City. She had just quit her previous agency to work with ours, and her previous agency was called VaynerMedia. I said, oh, what was that like working there? And she goes, well, you know, the CEO, Gary V. And I'm like, no. She's like, you don't know Gary V?
Oh,
Really?
he's that one guy. Yeah, he's also on Instagram motivational posts too. Yeah.
She told
Gary
me about this
V, there he
obnoxious
is.
but charismatic guy who simultaneously shat on corporate America while also profiting off it.
If you want to have one of the best lives in the world, which is you live on your terms, you have to pay your dues to get there.
I was hooked. I started listening to his podcast. I put it on in my morning commute and just get fired up. You know the feeling? And then meanwhile, I was admiring Casey Neistat's ability to make a vlog every single day. There was this sense that with massive effort came massive rewards. And the cool thing about that is effort is democratized. Anybody can put in effort. It wasn't about talent, it was about hard work. If you worked the hardest, you'd win. Cool.
Yeah.
Suddenly, rewards felt available to me. I got better at my job. I even flew over to New York a couple of times to work with this lady. I ended up being the creative director and writer on 9 Gatorade commercials and even one for the
impressive.
NFL. It
Holy
really felt
shit.
like my dreams
Wow.
were coming true. But there was one big problem. I realized that no matter how hard I worked in my corporate job, I would only ever be making somebody else's dream come true. I wasn't building my empire, I was building theirs, man. So I did what any ambitious, childless person would do, and I quit that job to start my own thing. The plan was to build an apparel company based on my illustrations. And once again, I was hooked. Doing this gave me a huge surge of energy and motivation, but as we're soon going to learn, this was sadly temporary. I was still listening to Gary V, so in my head, my plan was just to grind 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I was gonna
I never, like, whenever I was younger, I never listened to anybody's advice on how to, like, be successful at anything. Maybe that's, like, weird, but, like, I was just like, okay, well, I'll look at what other people are doing that are kind of where I want to be. Okay, they're doing that. All right, well, I'll do that too. Yeah, I never really, like, there's no, like, motivational speaker or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, that's getting advice, though. No, I think that you have to inform yourself about what's, like, about, like, what you should do and, like, how you should do it for sure. Yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Work the competition. And so for 3 years, from the start of 2016 to the start of 2019, I did exactly that. And then I stopped. But why? Why did I stop? Well, to answer that, I'm going to have to take you through the 6 lessons that I've learned since I stopped hustling. Can't take myself seriously with that word.
I think that the whole terminology of it and everything is that I think people try too hard to put too much of a emphasis on working hard. And I think that is a very, very wrong-headed mindset to go into being successful with. You should never want to work hard. You should want to succeed and outperform other people. It's not about working hard or not working hard. You have to look at what other people are doing and then find out how you can do it better. And preferably, you can do it better with less effort.
I'm on the couch now.
Efficiency
Grind
is more
set,
important
baby.
than hard
New
work.
angle too. Lesson 1. Hustle culture is deeply unsustainable. This is probably the most obvious insight, and most of us know it, so I won't dwell on it. I was young, and I had a lot of desperation to change my life, so I used it. But using desperation as your energy source 100% of the time turns out is super unhealthy. Don't get me...
I think that depends on what your motivation is coming from. So, for example, like for me, I can, like, I don't need to stream anymore. I do whatever I want. But I still log on every day and I still stream because I like streaming. So it's like if you're hustling and your only goal is to make more and more money, I do think that there will be a point where you realize that, you know, if you get really successful and you make a lot of money, you realize that there's a certain point where you're not going to be any happier, probably. Like there's not going to be like a next level for you to get to that's like it's like tangible.
You're wrong, it gets things done, but not forever. My main goal is just to be in a different place to where I was, but this would eventually catch up with me in the form of burnout.
Yeah.
More on that later. Which leads me to the
I
controversial...
used to burn out a lot, and like I still burn out streaming on my main channel, as you guys can see. But other than that, I actually look forward to my stream every day. I enjoy streaming. I like it. I like doing it. And I don't really get burned out. Like, it doesn't matter if there's like a bad day, people are angry at me or something like that. It doesn't really matter because I just like doing it. So it's like you have to be your own North Star. If you can't make yourself happy with working and doing what you like doing, then you're just never going to be happy doing anything. Like, until you actually do something that you want. Like, there's not going to be an amount of money that will make you happy. And if there is, get that money, then quit. Right? There's plenty of people that they work a really, really stressful job for like 10 years, and then they make enough money to where they can like effectively retire and maybe have like a part-time job and just fuck off for the rest of their life. That's a great way to do things too. That's totally fine. But like, you're not going to just do that forever.
Lesson 2. Hustling worked.
It does.
For the goals that I had set.
Yes.
This feels kind of taboo to say, but yeah, working every single day had positive results.
Yeah, if you work harder than other people and you're working at the same level of efficiency as them, you will outperform them. That's how it works. Absolutely. It works this way with video games. It works this way with like competitive esports. It works this way with real sports. It works this way with the job. Like, if you work more and you put more time into it, you will have more breakthrough moments, you will have more skill, you will have more experience, and you will in general be better.
Of course, the negative ones. But for those 3 years,
at the very top of almost anything, you have people that are simultaneously working incredibly hard and also being as efficient as possible. It's not like you have to only do one and you'll be successful. If you want to be extremely successful, you have to do both of them.
A comic every single day, and I ended up going from 0 Instagram followers to about 200,000. So
that's pretty good.
Was a result. But in saying that, I do feel like I need to clarify why it worked and why I don't think it'll work moving forward for at least me. It worked because I was young, I had energy and a lot of hunger. I didn't have overheads. Nobody suffered if I went broke. And as poorly scripted movie dialogue as this sounds, yeah, I had nothing to lose. Now I'm still relatively young, driven and hungry, but with one big difference. And that is I value myself and my sanity so much more. Back then I had a lot of
I don't anymore. And I think that's one thing that made me a lot mentally healthier, is that I no longer worry or concern myself with things going well or not going well and being upset or anything like that. I have tried to, as much as possible, remove myself from the situation that is my life. And I can just purely exist and enjoy the existence, the good, the bad, the frustrating, the fun, everything. You just enjoy it, and it's like, it is what it is. That's it. Detachment. Yeah, detachment as much as possible. And I'm not saying things don't frustrate me and make me mad. No. But I think that's just part of existing. That's how it is. So, like, after I changed my mindset on that, it actually helped me a lot with dealing with pretty much every problem in my life.
hatred, and the work that I made came from a place of just disgust with how complacently I'd been living my life, and I just really wanted to outwork those bad feelings. If I suffered, which I did a lot, it was because I deserved it.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. I 100% agree with that. I think that most people's problems are their own fault. Absolutely. If you show me a person with a lot of problems and you give me insight into their life, the odds are I think that there's a lot of you that could easily see what, they could be doing better. And I'm not talking about somebody that gets hit by a bus and it's like, oh, you shouldn't be walking on the street, or somebody gets cancer randomly. No, of course not. But we're talking about things that, basically people make bad life decisions, and then those bad life decisions affect their life badly. Wow, what a surprise. It's like you did this. The way that I look at things is that everything bad that happens to me, I view as my fault. I start from that goal, or I start from that beginning point. I don't look at things that have happened to me. I look at things that I have caused, or I have created or cultivated an environment for this to occur. Now, that's not always the case. And sometimes bad things just simply happen to you and they're not your fault. But I do think a more healthy outlook on things is to approach them from the beginning that it is your fault, because I think it gives you a certain sense of agency over the problem. Now you're not thinking about what's happening to you. You're thinking about how can you solve this problem. And even now with how I'm streaming, I stream every day, obviously I do management for the different OTK, etc. I don't really have to do a lot of that. I mean, thankfully, we have a great team and that's their job. But there is some stuff that I have to do with that too. Same with Starforge, Mythic, etc. But it's not really that much. It's probably less than you would imagine. And, you put all those things together, it does take time. But at the end of the day, these are things that I created, and I this is something I invested in, and I'm involved in this because I wanted to be. So it's I don't really think about how it's frustrating, or if I don't have a lot of time to do something, etc. And even now with what I'm doing now, I still feel like I'm underperforming. I still feel like I should record more unique YouTube videos. I still feel like I should post on more other social media stuff. And even now, I feel like I could do more. And I don't feel that way in terms of this weird desperation of, oh fuck, I'm falling off, I'm a failure or something like that. Absolutely not. I don't feel that way in any regard. I feel like I'm doing quite well, actually. I'm very happy with it. But it's just that I just continue working towards the next goal.
Now I value my mental clarity a lot higher than I value grinding. So what changed? Well, this did. Lesson 3. You can get more done if you take breaks. The idea of getting more done is still very much rooted in hustle culture, but the idea of getting more done while taking breaks was my gateway drug into a balanced life. At the start of 2019...
Yeah, I think so too, and that's one thing that I also do, is that I focus on... usually whenever I take a break from one thing, I start doing something else, though. You watch it kind of falls short a lot, though. People from Africa shouldn't have been born there. Oh, I'm just going to ban you. I mean, if you're so stupid that you think that's what I was talking about, I don't really want to have a conversation about it. Yeah, I'm not going to explain that to you, or it's not worth my time.
Was asked to paint a private mural. I love the idea. It was a coat of arms of a beagle and an ibis with the word Marrickville, which is one of Sydney's suburbs, underneath it. And it was just a bunch of Marrickville iconography. It was a fun job. I was also starting to toy with the idea of making YouTube videos because I'd seen this new wave of creators pop up. People like Matt Diavella, Kelly Stamps, Nathaniel Drew, Sav Brown, and Hines. I discovered this side of YouTube on the day that I painted that mural, and it blew my mind. These creators felt like they were representing a new way to get things done. Suddenly, it felt possible to chase your dreams and have a balanced life. It wasn't one or the other. I took fierce notes. It was a vulnerable time in my life, actually, early 2019. It coincided with 3 close deaths. We lost my 2 remaining grandparents, and my sister's lifelong best friend, who was a big presence in our lives, died from a heroin overdose.
That sucks.
Life felt really, really fragile. But I started noticing this change, and that was I began to value mental clarity. To get more of it, I needed more space in my schedule to think. So I took my foot off the...
I felt that the more that I try to pull away from things that I don't want to do and having to have any sort of responsibility or anything to focus on, the more that it affects my mental clarity in a bad way. So the more that you try to avoid certain things, the more that those things become like an ominous force that's just bearing down on your life. Now, it doesn't mean like there are a lot of things that I do actually avoid and I don't want to deal with them, and that's it. I deal with them the very minimal amount that I have to, and then I move on with my life. However, I do think that just trying to constantly remove yourself from as many problems as possible is not sustainable, and I think also in doing so, you create a mindset that's unhealthy.
Accelerator and spent a bit
like
more...
I've had this happen for me personally, like with my teeth, for example. I've let my teeth deteriorate multiple times in the past, and I had to pay the price for that. Literally, it was a lot of money, and it was very unpleasant for it to happen. And other examples like that too.
More time in my head, and I made a really big discovery. Lesson 4: work is an addiction. Just like drugs when I was young.
I think this is very true, especially with streaming, is that people get addicted to the feedback that they get and like the attention and all of that. And like they start streaming and like focusing on it and being like, oh, why I have to be on, and like they're addicted to the attention and the admiration and the adoration of people. Even if like they're a small streamer, it will happen. Absolutely.
I was using work to escape and run from myself. But why? What was so horrible about me that I had to run? Later that year, I'd open up to my partner Felicity and my mum about being sexually abused as a kid. It was a major childhood trauma, but my plan was to die with it. Just keep it a secret and end up in the grave.
That's
to make
awful.
sure I never thought about it again, I guess my subconscious method was just to fill my life to the brim with stuff. If it wasn't drugs, it was travel, and when those things didn't get me high, it became work.
I did the same thing after my mom died, is I focused a lot on streaming and keeping my mind off of it a lot. And it was actually helped out a lot. It gave me something I can focus on and do instead of just thinking about where my situation is.
Hustle. Gary Vee's message, by no fault of his own, became my enabler. He's like that friend when you're trying to quit who comes around with a case of beer and a bong and is just like, yo, let's get shit-faced. But instead he's like, yo, let's get successful. But herein lies another lesson. Okay. Lesson 5. Competition is a construct. We're now entering the mental gymnastics part of the video, so buckle up. The triple amputee palliative care physician BJ Miller has this beautiful quote. At the end of life, you can let a lot of the rules that govern our daily lives fly out the window. Because you realize that we're walking around in systems in society, and much of what consumes most of our days is not some natural order. We're all navigating some superstructure that we humans created. And that's how I feel about work-related competition. It's just a story that we tell ourselves. The idea that we're all racing each other to be the very best is a very strong myth at the core.
I don't think it's a myth. I don't agree with this. I agree with it in a way that like breaking away from like social structures is a good thing, but I don't think it's a myth at all. Like if you've got two people that are working and one person gets a promotion and the other one doesn't, all other things considered equal, it's going to be the person that works harder and is more competitive. Being competitive absolutely is like it makes you more successful in a lot of cases. Not in every single regard, no. And you shouldn't be competitive in like drinking coffee. Absolutely not. But absolutely life is a competition. The world that we exist in is a world that is built out of scarcity. All evil in the world, in my mind, comes from scarcity. It does not come from greed. It does not come from evil or lust. It comes from scarcity. It's people don't have enough of something that they want, and they are becoming more like feral or more evil to get there. That's all it comes down to, is there's no scarcity, or there is scarcity, and that's it. And in a world where you're competing for scarce resources, even if you pretend like you're not competing for them, you still are. You can change your mindset however you want, and maybe if it's a healthier mindset, you should do that, but that doesn't mean that you're not competing. It can be a competition, but it doesn't have to be. It depends on what's important to you. That's not really true. So I'll give you an example. So like we can go back and look at the case with Blizzard, and how, you know how Blizzard had like the sub-stacking, and there would be certain employees that were graded on a curve. So even if everybody was performing well, certain people would be you would have to rate them badly. There are a lot of things in the world that work that way. That even if you're doing good enough, that's not good enough. And you have to be competitive with other people, because if you don't win, they will. And if they win, you lose. And the systems in the world and in like companies punish losers and reward winners. So if being punished isn't a problem for you, then absolutely it doesn't matter. And you're not competitive. You don't have to be. But if you don't like being punished, you don't want to lose your job, you don't want to not be promoted, or you don't want to be, you don't want to have to forego certain advantages, you do have to be competitive. That's all there is to it. I know it's something you don't want to hear, but that's life. And that happened at Blizzard. And it's not fair. It's awful. But it's going to keep happening. You see what I'm saying?
Core of our culture. And also at the core of Pokemon. And it fools us into believing two big lies. The first is that there are finite resources. And the second is that you don't have enough of those resources unless you have them all. On the extreme end of the scale.
I disagree with this too. I think that having enough of the resources unless you have them all is like I think that's such a extreme version of it. Because like you're totally right. Like this guy's totally right if you look at this problem from like a 6-digit plus perspective, right? Of like salary. But I don't think that it's accurate if you're looking at it from the perspective of somebody who's making $40,000 a year. Like the reason why you think that you don't have enough resources is because you don't. And if you don't go out there and beat somebody else, they're going to beat you. And they're going to have it, and you won't. And that's all there is to it. And it shouldn't be like that, but it is. I don't know. What do you guys think? Anybody gets vicious? What's this here? Keep in mind, he's looking at the context of hustling. Yeah, I think that's just how it is. What about billionaires who went through that, for example? Well, so whenever I said 6-digit and above, so you think of $1 billion. How many digits is that? I think it's above 6, right?
Believing these myths results in insane wealth hoarding while like 1 billion people live on less than $1 a day. But do these myths and their implication
mean 1 billion people live on less than $1 a day? Yes, but would you say that the people whose problem... let me go back and listen to this again, just so I can make sure that I respond to it accurately.
The first is that there are finite resources. And the second is that you don't have enough of those resources unless you have them all. On the extreme end of the scale, believing these myths results in insane wealth hoarding while like 1 billion people live on less than $1 a day. But
no, it doesn't. And also the 1 billion people that live on less than $1 a day, their lifestyle is horrible and they're dying early and it's terrible and it's an awful travesty that we live in a world where that's the case. You go look at the way they live. They live like animals. It's horrible. Like, I don't think that a lot of them are happy all the time. Absolutely not. Yeah, it's literally his point. You're agreeing with him? That's a point he's making. And wealth hoarding caused it? I don't understand. I don't. What's the point that he's making?
These myths and their implication mean that competition is a useless concept. Personally, I think competition is still relevant as a contextual motivator as long as we don't emotionally internalize it. When you're playing sport, tap into it.
Yeah,
when
I think that's true.
Don't.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, getting emotional about it is always a bad thing.
But obviously this is way easier said than done. Because even if competition is just in our heads, the consequences are definitely real.
Yes.
You got to pay to live, and if there are only so many jobs, then yeah, competition's real. And on top of that, a lot of people still want to make beautiful contributions to this world, and those projects take genuine hard work. So what do you do? Well, that's where the final lesson kicks in. Lesson 6. If you want to do something that does take hard work, build a system that works for you. Work is only...
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, for sure. Yeah, instead of trying to fill into somebody else's system and try to fit into it, you should probably just do what you want to do. Absolutely. Not like all population can't have basic needs met. I'm a little bit confused here. Yeah, I still don't understand how what I was saying was contradictory to what he was saying. Or what was the same thing that he was saying. I don't get it. So you agree with each other? But I don't see him agreeing with me. Let me listen to it again.
Extreme end of the scale, believing these myths results in insane wealth hoarding while like 1 billion people live on less than $1 a day. But do these myths...
Believing these myths results in extreme wealth hoarding while less than 1 billion people... I mean... I don't think that's what I'm saying at all. Chat thinking wealth hoarding caused homelessness? Well, if there was less wealth hoarding and that money was spent towards helping homeless people, there probably would be less homeless people. I mean, I think that's possible. But I don't think that I'm agreeing with him at all. I'm just saying that I'm saying that, like, not having enough resources is not a myth for a lot of people. It is an actual real world problem. And I think it's not fair to say that competition isn't real, because, you know, even he said it is real. Because of greed, it doesn't matter. The thing is, like, everybody always wants to blame something else. At the end of the day, none of that matters. It doesn't matter what the government system is. It doesn't matter, like, oh, your parents were poor, or it doesn't matter, like, whatever it is, you're short, you're fat, you're ugly. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter, because your problems don't matter to anybody else except for you. It's totally irrelevant. The only thing that does matter is that, are you going to be able to overcome this or not? And if you don't overcome it, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Only you do. So you either overcome it or you don't. This point's about hustle culture, not general survival. There's a sweet spot for average people like him to work on a system and protects it that's not for someone else's system. I don't know. Like, I do think that I think that still competition does matter, even in, like, smaller jobs that aren't really having, like, super high pay.
Life. Same sound, but in my experience, work can also be super rewarding when you try really, really hard. So
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do about it? You want to work, but you don't want to be part of hustle culture. My solution
Right.
to this problem is to work with these 3 simple rules. 1, find a compelling reason to make things. 2, make those things sustainably. And 3, assume burnout is inevitable and prepare for it.
Yep.
I'll expand. Finding a compelling reason wasn't really part of my system before. It was more just selfish. It was like status, money, that kind of stuff. A compelling reason is something that's bigger than yourself. So this can be personal, like Homer when he's got the do it for her sign where he's doing his job for Maggie. Or it can be a big one where you clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch because you love the world so much. Whatever it is, what we're trying to do is make sure that the core of our engine is coming from an emotionally sustainable place. Remember before when I said mine was desperation? We want to take that out and make it serving other people. Yay!
Yeah, I think this is definitely true. Absolutely. Have a motivation that's not unhealthy.
But yeah, a sense of service, which I think is the opposite to the egoic gain that hustle culture seems to promise you. Money, status, power, 24 people in a camera crew following you around 24/7.
Yeah, I think... What's this?
Let him go, he can't see!
So now that second rule, making things sustainably. For me,
Yeah, I think that's very, very unhealthy for people, because, and then this is kind of like the problem is that, especially with, like, social media and celebrity culture, people put so much of a fixation around being massively popular and successful and, like, having tons of money. And I do think that's very unhealthy, because people grow up, especially younger people, they grow up and they think this is what they have to do. This is how they have to act. And if they're not, driving around the Lamborghini, and they have people like Andrew Tate and like that other guy that we watched the other day, the weird guy with the Lamborghini, another one, like telling them that if they don't have these things, they're losers. I do think that that's unhealthy for people to hear, because you're not a loser for not having a Lamborghini. Come on, it's ridiculous.
this boils down to creating a daily and a weekly routine that work for you.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it's how you spend your time off. So if I can, I will try fill non-working gaps with activities that fit the following criteria. You look forward to them, they don't make you think about anything else but that activity, and they don't make you worse. This third...
I think this second one is really important, actually. Like, doing something that actually completely takes your mind off of the rest of your life is super, super important. And I think that's why people like video games a lot, is because video games can be that complete distraction where you don't have to think about anything else except for that game.
Point
Yeah,
rules
it's
out drinking my
escapism.
body weight in beer. Things that fit this category for me are swimming, slacklining, swimming again, climbing, cooking, watching movies, anything in nature. You get it. And that third rule, assume burnout is inevitable. So from personal experience, it doesn't matter how well structured my life is still unpredictable, crazy things happen, and I'm only human. And what this means is that burnout is pretty much inevitable. Even if I do everything right, I'm still going to get exhausted at some point in the year. The way that I get around this is assume it is inevitable and factor it into my plan. How? Well, this is going to sound pretty basic, but I literally plan a holiday at the end of every year. And on this holiday, I like to use it as a chance to reset, recalibrate, figure out what did and didn't work, take a little audit, and then adjust the course accordingly. Plus,
I've done that multiple times with my stream. I mean, you guys know this. I've taken multiple, like, really long breaks from streaming and making content. And I think that every single time that I've come back, my content has been better. Like, overall, I think that, like, over the years, I have improved my content a lot. And I hope to, in 2 years from now, look back at what I'm doing now and think that it's not very good. That's my goal.
Gives you that light at the end of a tunnel feeling, you know, when you're working towards something. So that's nice. So those are my current 3 rules for working sustainably, and also the 6 things that I've learned from not grinding all the time.
Yeah.
You're welcome, dentists. If you want these rules and the guidelines that I use as a PDF, I've made a worksheet, and it's available on the worksheet tab of my Discord. So I'll leave a link to that in the description. We're here again. So how can we sum it all up? Because hustle culture did work for me for a couple of years, I can't in all good conscience criticize its effectiveness. But
I think that also hustle culture can work for a person, and then they can also coast off of the success that they created by hustling like that. Like, let's say you work really, really fucking hard for like 3 years, and then you coast off of it for 10 more. Like, this happens a lot too. So it's like saying that, oh, well, this is a bad decision and my life only improved after I started scaling back, you know, and not doing this as much. I feel like the ability to scale back and the insight that you had gained in those 3 years of hard work would not have been possible unless you put in those 3 years of hard work.
I can say that I've found a more effective system. And in finding that, I've started to question being effective altogether. Within that goal of being productive, effective, efficient, whatever it is, lies the root of the problem. Hustle culture equates your worth with your work. It encourages...
I very much agree with this. Abso-fucking-lutely. Everybody always asks me, all the time, they're like, don't you feel like you're wasting your time? You're not doing anything productive. You're not helping anybody. And it's like, that's right. That's right. I didn't ask to exist. I just showed up. It's not my responsibility to help other people's stuff. Fuck that. I'm here for me. You're helping people? Oh, I do help people in some regards, absolutely. But like, if people say that I'm not, I am not emotionally attached to people thinking that like my work and what I do is valid. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is that a lot of the hustle culture and this focus is actually, I think a lot of it is rooted in a lot of insecurity. And that's why you see almost all of the people that are promoting all of this hustle culture type stuff, like the same as like, masculinity type stuff, they are almost always preaching to young guys. Because I think young guys ages, I'd say 14 to 30 or 14 to 25 at least, are the most insecure people that I have ever fucking met. They have all of the same insecurity problems that girls do, but none of the social structure that rewards them and supports them for talking about it. It is one of the worst fucking things. Now, this has been changing a lot recently, and I think that's a good thing. However, it's still very common. Be a man, man up, deal with this. And you know what? In a lot of cases, that's exactly what I fucking do. Because I think in a lot of cases, it's not really about being a man. It's stop being a fucking bitch and get the fuck up and do it anyway. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares how you feel. It doesn't matter. I think that's very important to tell people that sometimes. It is. However, for the people in that category and in that group, I think there is almost the least amount of support for them, like socially as possible. And because of that, that's why they want to invest themselves into hustle culture. That's why they want to invest themselves into an internet dad like Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson. They want to do this, or Gary Vee. They want to do this because they need somebody to pat them on the head and tell them, you're a good boy, you're working hard, and you're going to be successful. Because the reason why they need that is because they are deeply insecure. They are massively insecure, and they need some form of reinforcement that what they're doing isn't a complete waste of time and that they're not a complete waste of time. So, yeah, I think that's why hustle culture is really popular. And I think also people equating their success as a person to how much money they make or what car they drive, etc., is also rooted in insecurity. I don't think a lot of people that are massively successful would really care about being seen in a non-expensive car. This is not important to them because they're successful independently. Like, I can't imagine, for example, Bill Gates, being worried that people might see him driving a Honda Civic. Like Warren Buffett. Oh man, I don't want people to see that I'm driving, I still go to McDonald's. The guy still goes to fucking McDonald's. He's like 80, 90 years old. Still goes to McDonald's and orders food. He doesn't give a fuck because there's no insecurity there.
Encourages you to focus entirely on work as opposed to everything else around you that makes your life rich.
Yeah.
And by doing this, it slowly erodes your life until work won't save you at all. The irony there is that the goal set out by hustle culture is also ruined by hustle culture. Or put more simply, friendship ended with hustle culture. Balance is my new best friend.
That's nice.
Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new here, and also if you're keen on some more stuff about mental health, I wrote a book on it. It's called Your Head is a Houseboat. It's been described as the most important and accessible mental health book in a generation, which is a very audacious way to describe a book. Other than that, good luck with balance, I suppose, and have an incredible day. Catch ya.
There it is. I do think that I do want to contextualize a lot of this around, I think that the fact that this guy can afford to scale back and balance his life in a healthy way, I think that, again, every single thing that happens to you in your life, what you are doing now is a culmination of all of those things. So for a lot of people, they work hard for 3 years and they bust their ass. They go all in on hustle culture, and then they coast off of what they achieved in those 3 years. Like, for example, there's people that stream, and they build their stream up. They stream every fucking day. They're like, man, I'm going to stream every fucking day. I'm never going to miss a day. I'm going to stream 8 hours a day. I'm going to follow every trend. And after 3 years, they get up to 5,000 viewers, okay? Then after that, they coast. And they say, you know what? Now I'm going to stream 4 hours. I'm going to stream 3 days a week. And I'm going to enjoy my life with my family because I understand how much balance is important for me. Yeah, that's all very nice and worldly for you to think. However, if you didn't grind for those 3 fucking years, you wouldn't be able to do that. So it's important to keep that in mind. I say I'm taking a shit now because I ate Taco Bell. Yeah, I'm saying you're taking a shit now because you ate Taco Bell last night. No, that's not what I'm saying, because everybody knows it wouldn't take an entire day for that to happen. Let me read over here and take a look at it. Some people don't always have the opportunity to grow up in a stable household, causes insecurities and other mental disorders. What's your take on that? Everybody has all of their own problems. If you care about what your problems are and you think anybody else gives a fuck about your problems, you're totally fucking delusional. They don't matter. People will pat you on the back and coddle you, but they're not really going to help you, and they don't actually care. The only person that's going to really care is you. The only person who's really going to come through for you is you. And if you can't rely on yourself, nobody else is going to give a fuck on you to rely on you either. That's all there is to it. And there are times, by the way, that you will get really lucky and you will have somebody who actually comes through for you and who actually helps you, and it will happen. But you shouldn't rely on being extremely lucky on a fucking 1% mount drop. That's pretty much what the chances on this are to happen in your life to reorient everything in a positive way. There are always people that have it worse. There are always people that, oh, well, this thing is bad for me. That thing is bad for me. There were disadvantages that I had growing up, But you know what? There are also a lot of advantages that I had growing up. And there are a lot of people that had it way worse than me that are as successful or more successful than I am. And I think that's the case for a lot of people, is that for anybody out there, if you think your situation is bad, I can almost fucking guarantee you that there's somebody out there who's had it worse than you, and they are where you already want to be. And that's what it is. So I think that you can always blame your situation. You can always say, oh, it's not my fault that this is how it is. And at the end of the day, if that makes you feel better and you care about feeling better, then just keep saying that. It doesn't matter. Like it's of nobody else's consequence that you're not successful in life because you're blaming external factors. Nobody else cares. It doesn't matter. However, though it's like, okay, all these bad things happened. Now, what are you going to do about it? Does that make sense? Environment? Yeah, the environment. Yeah, exactly. There's a bunch of third world kids walking miles through wilderness just go to school, basic elementary school. Absolutely, for sure. Let me see here. Okay, let me read a few of the comments and then I'll move on to something else. In a way, what you said hurt because I know it's true. Yeah, it's just that's how it is. Too many people with a false notion will help things. Well, I think that a lot of people, what happens is that they know that they are in an unadvantageous situation. They were born poor. They have some sort of other problem. Their parents didn't care about them enough or something like that. And the truth is that it sucks that happened to you. It's absolutely unfair. It's awful. And I think everybody does feel bad for a person like that. But at the end of the day, you either overcome that or you don't. That's it. It's like, okay, that's fine. Yeah, nobody really gives a fuck. People will coddle you and pat you on the back, but that's not it. That's true on the individual scale, but not on a macro scale. Well, are you an individual or are you a macro scale? Well, you're an individual. So who gives a fuck about the macro scale? Everybody knows the macro scale is rigged. Life is pay to win. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Let's see here. I'll read a couple more, then I want to go ahead and watch something else. Real question is, do you want to be a Giga Chad or not? Well, I don't know if it's really about that. I mean, it's just about doing something that you feel like that is fulfilling to you, right? That's all that really matters. That's true. People have sympathy, but they're not actually going to do anything. They have their own shit to deal with. Yeah, exactly. Imagine a world where everybody cares for each other. There are a lot of things that it would be better if there was no cancer in the world, right? It would be better if cats never died. It would be better if you didn't have to spend money to get food, but you do, and those things do happen, and it's awful. So you can either live in the real world and accept that there are certain things that are unfair and wrong, and they exist, and you can either choose to deal with them or live in denial, or you can live in a fantasy world, complain about it all the time, and nothing will ever change because it doesn't matter what you think. That's just the truth. And I'm sorry to say, but I had to learn that myself. Define care for chat. No one's going to go out of their way to help you. You can't rely on that. We don't control cancer, we control ourselves. Exactly, yeah. We can preach to people to hustle, and we can preach people to help each other. Bro, that's the oldest preaching in the book, okay? Like, it's just everybody likes to talk about helping other people, and they will. Do you remember how much, this is something that happened here, okay? Is that everybody during COVID was like, man, we got to make sure that all these people that have to work in these consumer contact jobs are able to get, money from the government. They're able to, they won't have to go to work and put themselves at risk of COVID. And guess what happened? Taco Bell started closing. And you know what the truth is for a lot of those people? Is at the end of the day, sometimes you just got to suck it up and you just got to work. Because the people do care about you. But the extent that they care about you is directly correlated with how much that affects their life. And the moment that they have to wait in line at Taco Bell for 5 extra minutes because you're staying home on COVID unemployment, they're getting your ass back to the job, and you're going to get you're going to get COVID, and that's too goddamn bad. That's just the way it is. And I am not talking about how it should be. It's awful that we live in this world. However, we do. And you can complain about it all you want, but it's not like it's just going to change. You seen the story of Taco Bell? Sent food in the tubes like at the bank? No, I haven't seen that yet. People care until it negatively affects them. Exactly. Swedish bank took apartments away from people at COVID time because they didn't pay anymore because they didn't work. Yeah, but the Swedish bank is probably going to talk all the time about how much they care about people because they do care about people until the check doesn't come. Then they don't care about them anymore because they care about money more. That's just how it is. Just how it is. Again, that's the way it goes. Let me read a few more things. We need to talk about positive things that happen too. I agree you shouldn't rely on things on a perfect level. The positive thing is that in most cases you are in control of your own destiny. The positive thing is that you can receive a grade A education that is probably better than anything that was available even 50 years ago on the internet for free right now. You have no excuse to not teach yourself a skill to be successful. That's actual positive news. Like, there's more democratization of information, media, and tools to learn now than there ever has been in the entire history of humankind. If you have an internet connection, you automatically have it better than over 1 billion people in the world. I don't want to hear about how, things are not good for me. You're right, but they could be a whole lot worse.